Welcome to Reflect with Ed Fassio. Get ready to experience one of the world's first 100% digitally generated podcasts, where we take a step back, dive deep, and strive to learn new things. Join us as we unpack thought-provoking ideas, personal reflections, and inspiring stories to help you stay in the know. Reflect is brought to you by the minds at ByteBrain and powered by emerging technologies from Google, HeyGen, OpenAI, and 11 Labs. Thanks for tuning in. Now, relax and prepare to reflect.
So, you know how we do, diving into all this stuff, and we got a really interesting one today, huh? AI girlfriends.
Yeah.
And all the stuff that goes with that, especially with relationships.
I think it's fascinating, really. I mean, how technology and actual human connection are kind of meeting up with this.
Yeah, and it's right away, the CNN piece we got, it's whoa, AI girlfriends are a real thing,
Totally.
They're not some far off thing anymore. And not just that, you can what's the word? Customize them. Make them basically what you want them to be, personality-wise, interests, the whole deal. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
It is, and that's what's so crazy, right? You get to create this ideal thing, almost I don't know, it's a, what's the word?
Yeah, like a fantasy.
Fantasy, yeah, but even more, it's you're designing it. And we're seeing companies I think it was Gatebox, they make these holographic companions.
I saw that, yeah.
So you could actually have a virtual girlfriend just hanging out your living room.
Whoa, that's getting really, really fast. It's cool, but also, I don't know, a little strange.
For sure.
But okay, before we go down that rabbit hole, we got to talk about why people even care about this stuff, And one of these articles, I think it was Pew Research, they had these stats, kind of scary. 63% of guys under 30 are single. And loneliness is a huge problem for them.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So could these AI girlfriends actually be a good thing? An answer for that.
It's a big question. I mean, researchers are really trying to figure that out. There was this one study, I think it was in Science Direct, and they were talking about how AI companions could help with loneliness, not just for young guys, but for older people and even kids with, special needs and stuff.
Interesting. So it's a broader thing than I initially thought.
Oh, yeah, totally. And this whole thing about social presence is a big deal here.
Social presence? What's that?
So it's it's that feeling you get when you think you're interacting with something real.
Yeah.
Another person, even if they're not physically there.
Okay, I get it.
And the better AI gets at acting human, the stronger that feeling becomes.
I can see that. But still, it's got to be different, right? Connecting with a computer and a real person. Are we going to end up with a bunch of people who don't know how to have real relationships?
That's the worry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you need to learn how to compromise, how to be empathetic, how to deal with arguments, all the messy stuff. And if your AI friend is programmed to always agree with you, are you really learning those things?
That's a great point. It's we're almost setting people up to fail in a way, which actually, that reminds me of something else from that CNN thing. They were talking about how these AI girlfriends might give people unrealistic expectations for a relationship.
Right, because if your AI partner is always perfect and happy, it's going to be hard to find that in the real world. And that HubSpot article, they said something similar. People might not understand the limits of real relationships anymore.
Exactly. It's like that saying, familiarity breeds contempt or whatever. If you're used to an AI who's always down for whatever, any relationship that requires actual effort, it's going to feel wrong somehow.
And it's not just romantic relationships, it's how you interact with everyone.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. So we've talked a lot about the downsides, but that Forbes article, they did mention some positives about AI and dating in general.
Oh, for sure. AI isn't just about making these digital girlfriends. It's also changing how dating apps work.
How so?
Well, one big thing is what they call hyper-personalization.
Never heard of it.
It's AI can look at your data, what you like, what you do, and find matches that are way more accurate than before.
So it's not just, oh, you both like pizza and hiking. It's deeper than that.
Exactly. It's AI is playing matchmaker with a PhD or something.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's not just about finding the perfect match. AI can also make online dating safer.
Oh.
The Forbes article talked about how AI can spot fake profiles, catfishing and all that.
Yeah.
So it helps people feel more confident and secure when they're using dating apps. It's definitely a step in the right direction, making things safer.
Yeah, no more catfishing. That's always good. But even with all that, it makes you think, If it's getting easier to find a perfect match online, even if it's just an AI, does that make real relationships even harder?
It's like what's happening with social media already, you know? We're so used to these curated versions of everything.
Right, like, is real life just too boring after that?
Maybe. And you know what the CNN piece compared it to?
What's that?
Pornography.
Whoa, okay, that got dark fast. How so?
Well, think about it. Porn used to be this taboo thing, right?
Yeah.
Now it's everywhere. And it's kind of messed with how people see sex and relationships.
Because it's so unrealistic, you mean?
Exactly. And the worry is AI companions can do the same thing.
Like, we get used to these perfect AI relationships, and real people just can't compete.
That's the fear, yeah.
And it's not just about romance either, is it?
Right, it's bigger than that. It's about how we connect with each other in general.
It's like we're losing the ability to deal with real people, with all their flaws and stuff.
And that's something that Professor Galloway, the one from the CNN segment, he's really worried about that.
Yeah, he called it a national crisis, right? Especially for young men.
He did, and he's not just talking about, like, lonely guys who can't find a girlfriend. He sees it as a symptom of something bigger. Social isolation, economic anxiety, all that.
So it's like these AI girlfriends are a Band-Aid, but they're not actually fixing the real problem.
Exactly, and he even made a connection between this and, like, conspiracy theories and stuff.
That's interesting. How so?
Well, his point is, if people are spending all their time in these digital echo chambers, surrounded by AI companions who always agree with them, it's going to mess with their perception of reality.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're not going to know how to deal with different opinions.
Right, and that lack of empathy, that's what can lead to some scary stuff.
Yeah, it's like they're losing touch with what it means to be human.
In a way, yeah, it's a complicated issue, that's for sure.
It is, and it's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom. But we got to remember, technology isn't good or bad on its own. It's how we use it that matters.
Exactly, and I think that's the key takeaway here. We need to be having these conversations, asking the tough questions. Because AI is here to stay, it's not going anywhere.
So how do we make sure we're using it for good, you know? Especially when it comes to something as important as relationships.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is, and honestly, I don't even know where to start with that one.
Me neither. It's like we're figuring this out as we go, which is kind of scary, but also exciting, you know?
Totally. It's like we're in uncharted territory here.
Exactly. But I think the most important thing is to talk about it, like really have open and honest conversations about all of this. The more we understand the potential impact of AI, the better choices we can make about how we use it.
Makes sense. It's like knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about setting rules for AI. It's also about understanding ourselves better.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it, this whole AI companion thing. It makes us ask some really deep questions about what it means to be human. Like, what do we really want out of our relationships? What are we willing to sacrifice for connection?
Wow, I never thought about it like that. It's like AI is making us take a good hard look in the mirror.
Right. It's forcing us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves.
And earlier you mentioned that AI is even making us rethink our definition of love.
Absolutely. I mean, what is love anyway? Is it about someone always agreeing with you, always making you feel good? Or is it about accepting someone for who they are, flaws and all?
That's deep, man, but it's true.
And these are questions that people have been wrestling with forever. But AI is adding this whole new layer of complexity.
It's like we're rewriting the rules of love and connection in real time. And speaking of rewriting the rules, what about intimacy? If we can create AI that feels real, does that change what intimacy even means?
That's a tough one, and I don't think there's a right answer. Some people might say that real intimacy requires two conscious beings, that you can't have that kind of connection with a machine.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then again, AI is getting so advanced. At what point does the line between simulation and reality become blurry?
True. It's just like we might not even know the difference anymore. This is getting kind of freaky, but also fascinating.
It is. We're talking about the very nature of consciousness here and how AI is challenging our understanding of it.
Mind-blowing stuff. And a little overwhelming, if I'm being honest.
It is a lot to process, that's for sure. But that's the thing about being on the cutting edge of technology. We're constantly having to adapt and evolve our thinking.
Well said. So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for all of us listening?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed, stay curious, and don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Because the choices we make today about AI will have a huge impact on our future.
Absolutely. It's up to all of us to shape how this technology unfolds. Well, that was a wild ride. We covered a lot of ground today. AI girlfriends, the future of love, the nature of consciousness. We even talked about porn for a minute there.
We really went there.
We did, but hey, that's what we do here. We dive deep into the messy, complicated stuff, and we leave you with more questions than answers.
Always.
So to our listeners, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, keep thinking critically, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.